Hey homeschool friends, welcome back to the channel. So it may seem like a bit of a out of left field switch for us to switch to Logic of English. We only had about 8 weeks left when I made the switch, but honestly, it really didn't come out of left field. It makes complete sense to me, especially since I have been choosing my homeschool curriculum based on skills and not so much on scope and sequence of a specific curriculum. And honestly, this switch actually came out of my brainstorming session. So I had a couple videos that I posted a few months back that have to do with my brainstorming session when I'm thinking about the upcoming year. And in brainstorming, on camera mostly, I was able to see some of the bigger picture stuff, like some of the things I might need, with the fact that I'm bringing on 2 5-year-olds next year, my kindergartners for next year. And I just needed things a little bit more straightforward. Now, Logic of English is not open and go. It's pretty teacher intensive, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's just chat through why I decided to switch to Logic of English Essentials. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel if you're new here, or welcome back if you've been coming for a while. Like I said, we're gonna be talking all about why we switched to Logic of English Essentials. It's gonna be more of a story time, to be honest. It's not going to be flipping through the curriculum. I just made a very detailed video on all the resources, on how to use the program, how to use the placement test, all of these things. I did a very deep dive video into the Essentials program, and so I will link that above if you want to go take a look at that to really even wrap your head around the curriculum if you have never heard about it. But what I'm going to be doing in today's video is really just chatting and taking you through my story, taking you through how I made this decision, and I hope that's of interest to you. I really find videos like that helpful because it's nice to hear what drew a person to a particular curriculum, and I find that I'm often surprised as to exactly why people choose what they choose. So let's just get into story time. So like all of my major curriculum changes, it is happening for my oldest, my son. He is currently 9 years old. He's in 3rd grade. He'll be going into 4th grade next year. And so it's not because he's not doing well. It's both and. There are subjects that he is struggling in, but I feel like when I make these big switches, it's usually both of us. It's usually my research and figuring out what's good for our entire family, as well as it meets the needs of what he has going on. And it usually is with my oldest. Maybe you can resonate with it, but I feel like I am often testing things out on him. He's really my guinea pig child, and he handles it well, and so I'm very proud of him for that. But it's for him for next year, although my daughter will also be using it, and I'll explain why in just a second. So first, a little backstory on especially my son, but mostly our journey through curriculum in these past 4.5 years of homeschooling. So I started homeschooling when my son was going into kind of those preschool years, and my primary focus for that time frame was phonics and early math. And when it came to phonics, the first program I really liked was Logic of English. In this case, it's Logic of English Foundations. It's the first program they have for phonics and teaching to read. So that was the one I was so excited about. I read all the resources. I read Denise Ide's book, Understanding the Logic of English, and I was just jazzed. We got into it, and it just was a little much for my son. I know there's some people who love the program and their children just thrive. It just bogged him down, and he just was struggling with the format, honestly. And so we made a switch, and we made a switch to all about reading, and that really helped him out. That really gained him a lot of confidence. And then after a while, it was going a little slow, and then we finished it out with Abeka, and Abeka really got it done. So he's at a place where he is really reading well. So we still do sit together and read. We have readers, our Sunlight readers, and I love the Sunlight readers, and we'll sit together, and I still will help him with a few words and things like that. But he's also reading a number of books himself, mostly at night before bedtime. So he is definitely taking off with reading. And so for me, that actually was the biggest thing. Once I kind of brainstormed and was able to assess where he was at, I was like, wait, his phonics journey is kind of over. That is done. He's reading. So what is next? What's next in language arts? when a kid can read. Now, there's so many aspects of language arts, right? You have spelling, handwriting, vocabulary, phonics, there's some others. Grammar, that's the one I'm forgetting. I knew there was one. But there's all these aspects of language arts. And so I was trying to assess what I needed to focus on next. And so this current year, what we were using was a hodgepodge of stuff. So we were using Sunlight Language Arts, which I have a video about that. I really like their level 3. It has the diamond notes, which really helps with paragraph formation. So the composition of Sunlight, I'm really liking. And so we use Sunlight primarily for that, as well as the readers. So those two things I really love for Sunlight. We were using Abeka for grammar because I just need a little bit more grammar help than Sunlight was offering. So we were kind of supplementing with grammar, and then we had a handwriting program, and then we had Wordly Wise for vocabulary. So you see that was 4 programs for language arts. And when it comes down to it, I was like, I'm in the process of trying to figure out how I'm going to bring 2 other kiddos into our homeschool, and the idea of having 4 separate programs for language arts was just a little bit overwhelming. And so when I got to thinking about it, I was like, okay, well, Abeka. I was thinking for a while that I was just going to use Abeka all the way through because I've heard great things about Abeka language. And it really is said to be one of the best. And I can agree with that. It teaches it very thoroughly. It spirals all the concepts back. You're really learning the grammar, the parts of speech, the different types of sentences, all of that. But what is hard, and what I found hard about Abeka, is it is also teaching in the Abeka language, especially as you get to like grade 2 and above. It's kind of leaving behind the phonics, and it's really focusing on grammar and writing, like composition and like penmanship and stuff. And so the problem is on the worksheets, his level for, write all these different sentences, we just weren't doing that. We had different strategies for writing to not bog him down, and Abeka just has high expectations for what the students can write. So I was liking the grammar. I wasn't liking the infiltration of the writing, even within the grammar worksheets. So that was a bit of a struggle. And I was like, am I going to be able to stay with this program? And then as for vocabulary, Wordly Wise, that was just fine. It was a good independent thing we were doing, but it really wasn't linked up to anything else we were doing. It was a separate workbook. And then spelling. Okay, so spelling, if you've been following my channel, you know spelling has been really my nemesis. It's been the struggle subject for the whole year with my oldest. I've tried a lot of things. I was on Spelling UC, which a lot of it I loved. I love how it's like visually chunking the words to help them see the chunks, to help them try to remember it. I was struggling because they were chunking in different ways than Abeka chunks. And that really was it. And my son was just floundering with that. He's like, well, wait, this isn't the word chunk we would chunk in Abeka, because Abeka uses special sounds to teach phonics. And so I was like, well, either I could adjust Spelling UC to look for the special sounds from Abeka, but that just seemed very silly. And he was just getting overly confused by how they were teaching it. And I get it. It's from 2 different separate programs. And yes, it would have been so much simpler if I could have used like Abeka spelling, but we really can't use list spelling with that child. And so it was a struggle, I feel like. And so when I was assessing all of that, assessing the number of programs we had, 4, and assessing that spelling still was a struggle, even though we've tried a lot of programs, I remembered Logic of English. I remembered all the research I did 4 years prior when I was excited about how Logic of English approaches teaching language, teaching the English language. And I've read Denise Ide's book, like I said, and I'm there. I really get what she's trying to say with just using the basics for the phonograms and teaching that, and then teaching the spelling rules. Now, side note, I did look at All About Spelling again. I seriously considered it because it is also heavy in the spelling rules. And we've used it before and it's worked before. It's just very intensive. Like just that one subject would take us so long. And I was struggling with that because it was like, this is one of so many language arts subjects for this one child, and I have 4 children, and I was just getting overwhelmed by that. And what I found with Logic of English is, yes, it teaches spelling, phonics still, it kind of reviews all the phonics, vocabulary, and it teaches its vocabulary through morphemes, which I discussed a lot in that other video, but really it's Latin and Greek roots. And so it's teaching those things, and grammar or spelling, whichever one I forgot. But what I like about Logic of English is it's interwoven. It's kind of like it takes a main concept for the week and it's teaching some of those phonics concepts and the spelling rule concepts. And then it goes into the grammar section of the week and it still has those same spelling words. And now you're looking at what parts of speech are those words. You're also looking at any new phonograms that are in those spelling words. And so it's all kind of mixed together. And then you get to your vocab day and you're learning a new concept, but you're also pulling it back into some of those phonograms and some of those spelling rules. And so it feels very thorough and interconnected, which just makes sense to me. So it's not just so much that I think that Logic of English saves time because it's an all-inclusive language arts program. I just think it teaches in a way, especially for a logical child, it teaches in a way that connects it all together. Like it gives the scaffold and then it hangs everything together. And to me, that's making a difference with him. He is being able to kind of work with the words. It's just like working with the words a lot. And that's been helpful for him. He's really enjoyed it. I mean, enjoyed as much as a 9-year-old boy enjoys language arts. But I feel like it's a better fit. So then you get to the fact that this all kind of happened around that brainstorm session a couple months ago, where I was just kind of putting everything on the table and being like, yes, I like Abeka. It's really worked well for us, but maybe it just really works well for phonics for us, and that will be our phonics program. And then we need to move on to something else for the post-phonics timeframe. And once I start looking at curriculum in that way, because after I got to the decision of like, yes, we're gonna use essentials next year, I kind of realized like, should we just start next year or should we start now? Because it felt like, well, that seems silly to start now. We only have 8 weeks left. But at the same time, spelling wasn't working. And I was like, well, we could do 8 more weeks of spelling, you see, and it feels like a waste of time. And we can do the Abeka language and that would be fine, but we're still fighting the writing. And it felt like I was just pushing off starting something I really wanted to do only because I felt the need to finish a curriculum or finish the scope and sequence. Like the curriculum companies have all the answers for like, oh, if I don't finish all of this grade, I'm gonna miss something. And that's just, I'm trying to combat that. And I feel like I've learned this a lot over the past 4 to 5 years of homeschooling, is to try to focus more on skills. Like what are the skills my son has? What are the skills that are coming next in the progression of learning our language? You know, like what things does he need now? And being able to look at it more in skills and then be like, yeah, if that's what I'm looking for, pushing out on these 2 curriculums the last 8 weeks is kind of silly, or it is a waste of time. I could use that to start these programs and maybe integrate a bit of it in the summer, and we'll just get a big head start on this next season, this next set of skills for him. So I'm not sure if you guys do that, if you feel this need to like, well, the curriculum says I should teach it this way, as opposed to being like, no, my son needs this. You know what I mean? I feel like I've definitely grown in that as a homeschooler. And this has probably been the best example, the best curriculum change example of that. And so we've been using it for 3 weeks now. 3 weeks, that's it. So, I mean, I don't want to say too much because I've liked other programs for the first 3 weeks and been like, it's awesome, it solves all our problems. And I don't know, you know, maybe it won't. I have learned to hold all things loosely, but I am more optimistic that this is a good fit for him in particular. And my daughter potentially too, because she is really finishing up phonics. She's getting really good at reading, and we're gonna spend the summer reading some more. And then I think I'm just gonna hop her into essentials because there's no sense doing anything else. And so that is kind of the why. That's a little bit of the story behind why we made this kind of 4th quarter switch into Logic of English, and why I think it's gonna be really good for my family as well as my son, who's going to be primarily using it. So yeah, that's what I have. Let me know down below if you have any questions about the whole process or curiosities, or watch that other video if you want some more specifics about the program. But I'm happy to answer any questions, and share down below if you are like me and you sometimes struggle against that curriculum scope and sequence and feeling like I need to finish versus like my instincts are telling me that I need to switch because my son is done with this. We don't need it anymore. Do you know what I mean? So let me know down below if you are like that as well. And otherwise, guys, thanks for stopping by. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to, subscribe to the channel. And otherwise, I will see you in the next homeschool video. All right, take care, guys.